All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Happy Friday, I think. And welcome back to the Fort Worth Community Arts Center's Boxed Lunch program. We have hit a milestone today, is our 20th interview. So we are very, very happy to be back live on Facebook. And we have a very, very special guest with us today, moving into the education community, which I'm quite excited about. So today, please help me in welcoming the one and only Devon Goodman. Did I say that right?
It's said how it's spelled, Devin. Just simple as that.
Devin.
Yes, that apostrophe replaces whatever creative letter most people put there.
Well, we are so very glad to have you and just so appreciative of you taking the time. So before we get started, do you mind just introducing yourself and telling us a little bit about who you are and what it is you do?
Hi, so I'm Devin Goodman. For those of you who don't know, I am a local educator and a education advocate. I love engaging the community in ways for how we can make education equitable and bring in resources and opportunities for every single student. I am often, that's in the arts because that's where my love lies, but I am an ex-athlete, so I understand there are other arenas, and a nerd, so I understand academics. Like, I look at it all, and overall the goal is just to make sure every single student, especially in public education, is getting what they need to make sure that they are successful and they are doing their best outside of school and then after school too. So that's in a nutshell what I would say I do. I'm sure if I looked at my calendar, it would just be all over the place though.
Well, we are so very grateful to you in the education community. A lot of talk about frontline workers in the medical field, law enforcement, and I cannot stress it enough. What you do is so crucial, especially in these trying times that we're in right now. And my hat and heart go off and out to you with all that I am sure you are going through at the moment. And just so appreciative and grateful to all you do in terms of education and in the community, and for that that advocacy as well. It is something that we should all really be bowing down to you for, because what you are doing and moving forward with this upcoming school year and the challenges that are in front of you, I can only imagine. And so thank you for all of that and all you do. And again, we're just so grateful that you took the time to join us today and decided to have lunch with us in a sense.
Yes, in a sense, I know I'm already in teacher mode for planning and everything, but thank you for that introduction. And thank you for that. Thank you. I think so many teachers right now and so many people, that spring virtual learning, whew, it was something. And I think that we all kind of thought, oh, but that's cool. In August, we'll be back to normal. And now we're looking at August, which is really close. And it's like, well, nope. And what would normal be? Because we've also had so much happening and just civil rights and race relations. And so you're right, going back this school year for so many teachers is going to look different. And I hope better. I hope that in ways as a community, we come together and creatively break down some systems, rebuild in a great way, and in 5 years from now, we look back as a community and we're like, we did well. It was not easy, but we did well.
Yeah, I can just only imagine the challenges that you guys are facing. And I know a lot of us thought that this would be over and done with and we would be back to some normalcy. And it seems like the markers just keep moving. And, you know, I've heard a lot about education on the news cycles and things, and the challenges that are in front of the education system. And so I just can't say it enough about taking what we learned from the end of the last school year and bringing that forward, especially with the way things are going, you know, specifically in Texas and obviously across the nation. So
right.
Thank you.
I know it's been really interesting because I know just yesterday, a Dallas school district, Dallas ISD, they looked at it and kind of said like, hey, we might have to delay opening actually. And then I know that in San Antonio, you have some schools that are flat out saying they're not going to do in person, even if the state is requiring it. And you've got this just what would even look like in person with virtual learning. They're losing socialization. There are just so many things across the board. And I do not at all envy the people making the decisions, but truly my heart goes out to my colleagues, my fellow teachers, as we look forward and are like, okay, what is this going to be? And every day, I think people are pouring over. TEA probably has never had this many clicks in their lives. And however, I will say, contacting representatives, I've heard they're getting back to people. So reach out to them and hold them accountable. And then as far as resources go, I've actually Cook's Children has kind of stepped up and seen some things, and they provided guidelines. And now you're seeing other entities offering advice, and just again that community rebuilding in a certain way of, you know what, maybe I have something to offer to help them,
Sure.
and as they figure out this plan, which is a comfort in a way.
Yes, absolutely. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the lunch menus today. On some of our previous episodes, we've been in a lot of people's kitchens and cooking areas. And from what I believe is probably just a normal day for educators, you seem to be already in the midst of work and planning and prepping. And so it's my understanding you are having a typical teacher's liquid
Yes,
lunch today. Is that right?
yes. So, and I actually am, and I've been bouncing and running around doing work, and in the hubble of this morning, completely forgot my lunch that I had planned to make with you, in searching for internet and a good spot to work. And I ended up at Leeds, wonderful location, and I am enjoying some nice Earl Grey sparkling tea and dreaming of what I'm going to eat when I finally get a chance to get food. I will not be cooking it because I've reached the point where there's no way I could cook and not salivate the entire time. So I will be supporting a small business in the community.
Fair enough, and local as well. So,
Yeah.
all right, well, I'm still stuck here, so I'm going to
Yeah.
go ahead and let you in on my little lunch menu. I'm doing a little bit of a leftover medley today. So, I'm going with a pork stir fry, and I don't have a wok, so I'm just using a skillet. I just called it stir fry because it sounds a little better. And I'm using some shredded pork. I've got some pineapple slices left over. I actually roasted a jalapeno over 4th of July weekend, so I've got some of that left over that I'll throw in there as well. And I have to give a shout out. I did not cook the pork. It's leftovers as well from Ohana
Oh,
Hawaiian barbecue over on Camp Bowie. So
yeah.
I'll be using some of their Kahlua pork that I have.
Ooh, that sounds
And
so good.
while we visit, I'm just going to literally throw it in the skillet and mix
And
it
there
all
you
up
go.
and call it a stir fry. So
I like that. I'm jealous. That sounds delicious. And man, it sounds delicious. And not just because I'm kind of reaching that starving point.
so do you already have your lunch option settled on whenever you leave here?
So I did. I was gonna stop over across at Dusty's Bengay's, and I love them. And then I made the mistake of watching a video of it's this thing on. I do recommend it, but it's on Instagram called Around the World. And the young lady takes people to 7 different locations around the world for one meal. So soup,
Nice.
here's 7 different locations. Cheese, here's 7 different locations. So at this point, I've now gone through, well, I'd love an omelet. Well, maybe I'll just stop by Chadra's and get a cheese board. Oh man, this right because she went and one of the soups was some really hearty, just overall ramen bowl, and I was like, that sounds good with some dumplings, maybe. Who knows? I think I'll still land at Dusty's, but right now I could also do with a good omelet or chicken fried steak from Bakery Cafe.
Very nice. All right. Now, we always tell people if you've got any great links for us, including that Instagram with the 7 different restaurants, after the interview, just come back and drop it on the comments here on the Facebook thing so we can all take advantage of that. And more importantly, I'm going to ask you to come back after lunch and let us know what you decided on so that we know you were fed and taken care of and still in good health and heart.
Yeah.
And, able to stay sustained as you move forward with this educational component. So
Yes, I will. Don't worry, guys. I've gone entire 7 to 7s and done well and then devoured everything in my refrigerator. Yeah.
nice. Okay, well, I'm going to give you a little bit of rundown of what I'm doing here. I'm just literally
Okay.
going to start heating the skillet up. And then I'm literally just going to take my roasted jalapenos and throw those right in there. And then also these pineapple slices. And then I'll
Okay.
just put those in there as well. I'm going to let those kind of simmer a little bit while the pan heats up. And while that's going on, we'll find out some great information from you, including.
Wait, are you not gonna sprinkle like some salt and pepper, some
We'll
seasoning?
get to all that. Don't even worry about it. We got special ingredients and
Ah,
secret tips, all that fun stuff, which is
okay.
basically salt and pepper. And
Okay.
I like
As
the
long as.
pineapples because it'll kind of give some of that juice. That acidity will also help to keep things from sticking in the pan. And
Yes.
luckily, most of it's already cooked, so I don't have to do too much prep. It's probably more of a reheating than an actual cooking. So
Okay.
I don't want to give myself too much credit. So,
Understandable.
but yeah, salt and pepper is right there and always an essential element to the lunch menu. So.
Yes, always, always.
So, in regards to questions, I was curious if you wouldn't mind starting out visiting with us a little bit and discussing how is education and advocacy in general reacting and obviously been affected by the COVID-19 pandemic.
Oh man, on so many levels. I think for education personally and as a community, you're seeing the response with the pandemic be a teachers were very patient. I don't think truly people understand the weight behind in the spring having to completely flip your curriculum to online and learn all these different ways to try to interact with students and engage students while at the same time, I mean, having to keep up with somebody had to be the person to send out the surveys and make sure families were taking the surveys. Who has a hotspot, who doesn't have a hotspot, who's not doing as well, who needs support, who's socially and emotionally. I happened to be grabbing some food to go in the spring and ran into a student that no one had been able to get a hold of. And it was because she was working full days supporting and helping her family out. And then having another student who just multiple, and I believe a lot of teachers will say this, multiple teachers dealing with students who just their overall mental and emotional health drops. And yet still having to try to engage them in curriculum. And so I think that response for a lot of teachers was truly a lot to take on. And I hope that in this break that is summer, while we are anxiously waiting for what's happening next, people have started to take care of themselves because I think what we're seeing now is, oh man, it's not going to let up. Um, I've got to be on my A game while also taking care of my family, concerned about my family, and in whatever decision they make, because we still have to grocery shop and we still have to emerge from time to time for certain needs. And I have had so many students and seen so many parents and other teachers online who the biggest question isn't what if I catch it, what is it, this is what are we going to do if somebody passes? How do we prepare our students for that and our staff for that and keep trudging along? And I think that shows the compassion that still lies in the teachers, even as they are more and more making it aware to others of like, please get involved and invested and fight for this to be done the right way. And that's where that advocacy comes in. I'm seeing so many teachers just activate their networks in as many ways as possible to really say, how can we hold TEA and the overall decision makers accountable to, because it's coming down to funding if people are not aware of this.
Yep.
Education is sadly now a business, and it's coming down to schools need funding, and because they have to pay teachers and these custodians and all of the supplies, and they've been put in, our districts have been put in a hard spot. And so that's why you're seeing a lot of reach out to the Texas commissioner, reach out to your representatives, even your local representatives, and hold them accountable for looking at better and safer options for all. And I mean, I'm seeing so many teachers that I've never seen post about teaching in the way of advocacy, reach out and just try to ignite people into this. And I have also been really impressed with, or even encouraged with, parents. I have not seen one parent badmouth a teacher. I've not seen one parent begrudge or judge another parent for whatever decision they've made, whether it's in person or virtual or homeschool. That is an option. There are many people who are activating that homeschool option, and whatever it is, people are supporting. And I think that's a wonderful way that we're seeing, just like this lunchbox, community develop in different ways. And I even saw in one Facebook group parents discussing, what if we do little schools for the virtual learning? And I love that. I wish in Fort Worth, as many community centers and churches and nonprofit organizations, I wish we could activate all of them and just make little pockets for virtual learning, and the only people in buildings are teachers.
Yep.
And we're isolated in our own little classrooms. And I could just, I mean, the kids then, they get the socialization, and that's what this Facebook group was talking about, was like, let's get this, make this happen, find a creative, meet in the middle, and really do best by our students and our children as much as possible, while also not feeding into the hysteria, sort of say. And it's valid hysteria. Let me just clarify that. There's no, anything you're feeling right now is valid. Move into that, feel it, and go forth. Did I?
Some great ideas and some great information as well. I'm curious, and I don't want to put you on the spot. I know that a lot of the educational discussions right now have been in regards to the pandemic and the COVID-19 and trying to deal with those challenges. I'm curious, is education discussing the social challenges that are in front of us right now as well, in terms of the Black Lives Matter movement, the monument discussions? That just seems like another challenge that that has to be addressed as well. Are those talks happening as well?
So that, I know I'm having them all over the place, and I've been having them for like the last 5 years. But I think at this point, as a school, if you're not having them, you are only going to add to your issues. My greatest advice to any leader, principal, is to call in their Black teachers, their brown teachers, their teachers of color. Give me feedback. Lean into them, and then do the same for parents and students. Tell me really what's happening and what we need to do to make sure, because this is where, because the debate has become a debate,
Yes.
and very divisive, it's at the point where are students going to feel comfortable whatever they're doing, engaging with their teachers. And you have to also take into account a lot of students. I teach high school. I know that my students are on social media, and um, they're seeing all of this, and they're going to have expectations coming back, and which I think is great. Whatever we decide to do with pandemic, you have to be looking at your content, your curriculum, and your practices and accountability. Um, my greatest suggestion to ensure those things happen, though, goes back to community. Hold your districts and your school board accountable to make sure that those practices are not only being provided and the resources provided, but that they're accountable. That when concerns are raised, that students know, one, you can definitely advocate for yourself about this, but two, when they do, it's taken seriously.
Yes.
We know locally we had this, I mean, it's just so heartbreaking, but I think they just solved it in this past year, but one of the local teachers tweeting out comments to the current president. And in that conversation that happened in front of the school board and across social media, you had all these students come forward who were like, I've been dealing with this for years. And I just participated and Share the Mic DFW. We had an inspirational young lady from the HEB area talk about organizations she started, things she's done. And this was 2 years ago in her class, students raising their concerns to a teacher, and a teacher pointedly just saying, this is why I don't engage in this, because it's not a concern to me. That can't be a thing that goes on after this. This has to be something where we're holding each other peer to peer and community to community accountable, and leaning into best practices. But also, and this is one thing that for me personally, and I hope that as teachers we remember, there's so much more to Black communities and brown communities and other communities of color, Indigenous populations, LGBTQ, disabilities, or disabled people, that is trauma. There's so much more to those communities than just surviving. Teach the joy, teach the triumphs, teach the just overall community that lies in those communities, the different routes of culture. There's so much and richness in each one, and you can connect it and bring it together. That's what I'm doing right now, is looking at my curriculum with my team and really delving into how do we connect, how do we do this. I even briefly talked about it on my educational Instagram page, and right now I'm in a series of really breaking down for teachers, how are you an anti-racist teacher? How is your curriculum culturally inclusive? And in those comments, I'm giving tips to parents and community too, of how do you hold districts, teachers, and principals accountable for this. So you're right, it's a lot happening. On top of, I mean, we have that, and then we have the just healthcare concerns, economic concerns.
Yes.
Like you said, mental, emotional health, of just overall the isolation. As people, we are meant to be with people. And what is that doing to developing minds, especially developing minds that might not be in the best home environment? We haven't even, I think, as a state or even as a city, really been discussing the rising numbers
Yes.
of domestic and child abuse. But it's there. And for my friends that work in social work, it has them very, very concerned about how much longer are we going to be in this process. A wonderful article was just written by a friend of mine, and I'm happy to share that. But it's talking about domestic abuse and how it has altered how people can even reach resources right now. And that's environments that students are in. It's a lot. It's a lot. Education is taking in all of what is happening in our society right now and having to quickly process and move forward.
Yeah, I think often we lean on educators to teach our children, and a lot of that does circle back to the learning that comes from the home environment, social structures, and a lot of the things that are not even in the schools.
Right.
And it's very important that we acknowledge that, and that parents and community leaders accept that responsibility of education as well, because I think there's a lot of thought that it needs to happen in the schools. And
Mm-hmm.
while it does, I really think the base of that ability to learn is really brought about in the home environments. And I know that some people are not only struggling with the pandemic, but also a lot of those home situations in terms of
Right.
what kind of environment that they're in, and how we can get those resources to those people to train the parents and the people that are in these young people's
Right.
lives outside of a classroom, especially when we honestly have been in it less and less. And so I think some of that weight's going to be pushed back, and we're going to have to find some ways as community leaders and parents and just adults in general to take a lead
Yeah.
and do what we can to not only teach and share information, but leading by example and showing these young people what and how we should be working together to try to grow as humans. And so
Yeah.
it's an amazing challenge for sure. So
Yeah. You
now,
know, I'm so happy. Oh,
no, you
go
go
ahead.
ahead.
Oh, okay.
You go
So
ahead.
I'm so happy to say that because I just think, man, the minute we start really functioning again as the village concept of raising children, students, young learners, um, young citizens in the best way possible is the moment we step into just like a beautiful time and golden era of community. And I will say that a local education leader that I respect heavily um, and I can say this because she said this on a Facebook Live with Fort Worth ISD's Race and Equity, one of their town halls that they had. Karen Molinar spoke about noticing the gap and lack of interaction with parent engagement and support, and that is definitely a goal that they have moving forward, is how do we engage parents so they can better support and understand the education system and how to really help their students. And I'm excited to see what they do with that there's so much right now available. I just know it's also constrained by decisions with how school will look and finances.
Sure.
But I know it's on their radar, and I'm excited to see that.
Yeah, I am too. I'm also curious, are the students having a voice in some of these decisions? Or more importantly, are the students finding their voice in these discussions? Because they are the ones that are expected to retain the information, however
Right.
that's provided. Are they being heard?
So on twofold with the pandemic, I will say I had a wonderful conversation with one of my students right when this started and we went to virtual learning, and she's just like, it's entirely too much. And we were talking through it and I explained to her, well, are we focusing on this? And she's like, I don't know. And I was like, how many revolutions have I taught you at this point? I have taught you how to have a good revolution. Let's get this right. But she really did activate, and I know that a lot of districts have given students the opportunity to participate in the feedback surveys that happened earlier, and I know a lot of principals have urged teachers that are still through whatever resource connected to students, check in, see how they're doing, see what's working for them. And I've had students who have kind of circled back and been like, is this happening? Because I have opinions on this. On the other end, I think that it depends on that's that cultural thing. I actually taught team leadership and taught how to advocate for yourself and get involved in your community. And I think we as adults need to model that better for youth. And in modeling that, we also need to give them grace. And so right now, I know that in California, there's been a huge movement of students organizing online in regards to race and curriculum and demanding certain things of their school board. And I know even in our community, you have had some schools that have received students and alumni demands and questions and concerns and wants of actionable steps. And so I think we're seeing it. I wish we had it more, but what can we do when they've only been given such few models? Right?
It's very true, very true. So, wow. Yeah, so many challenges out there, and this is our future. I mean, these
Right.
students are going to
Yes.
be the ones leading us, and I think we are really seeing an awareness and an awakening in the younger generation, and I
Oh,
look
yeah.
forward for their leadership because they've seen things in a different way than we have over the course of the last 15, 20 years. Things I believe are slowly awakening,
Yeah.
and these are the people that are really, I believe, going to make the difference. I know we're trying to change the minds of a lot of perceptions from the past, and I think something that we really need to embrace and hold on to is, I believe, the majority of the minds in the younger generation, they've already kind of opened themselves up a little bit more
Hmm.
so than some of that stuff from the past. And
Oh,
so I
yeah.
really look forward to hearing them and see how they advance us because they're the future, and they're the ones that are really going to be able to uh, build on the foundations that people are fighting so hard for, and honestly have been for centuries.
Yes.
So it's very encouraging. I have two
Yeah.
kids of my own, and they're in their late teens and early 20s, and it's very encouraging to hear them. And I think I know what I've taught them, but more importantly, it's great to be able to hear what they're teaching me.
Oh,
And
yeah.
and very often you don't think to ask. We think parents are the ones that are in charge, and that communication and keeping that open is how we will be the old dogs that learn those new tricks. So
Right.
there's some hope out there. There really
Yeah.
is.
And I can say, like, I think reflecting in this moment and some reflections I've done already about this past school year and how I could teach an entire lesson over mass democracy. And yet and still I will get certain students who, because of what they're passionate about in their response essays, um, they're still going to lean into, well, here's my feminist concern about this.
Right.
Here's my concern with capitalism about this. They're going to find what moves them. And that's one thing I love about what I get to teach through humanities is bringing that English, the literature, and the history together, is because then they're seeing reflections and actual historical society interactions, events, and they're finding for them, here's where I really want to learn more and engage more. And at the end of the school year, they do end of the year speeches, and they actually build from, you can bring in what you learned from freshman year. We hope you do, because we've tied it into lessons. Same with junior year. And you see students, I mean, I had one student who did his end of the year speech over weapons development and the need for them,
Right.
and why ending in World War II, the huge impact and difference from what a weapon originally was needed for, and what that says about society. And that's him, not me sitting up at a podium giving, here's my perspective. This is him taking in 2 years worth of lessons and discussions and seminars and readings and saying, this is a concern. Another student who was looking at the large difference between European revolutions and South American and even slave revolts in the South and colonies, and saying, why in European are we having this debate about women's roles and constantly trying to push them into what we believe women should be, whereas in South American and slave revolts, we have women rising up and leading. What is this cultural difference? Why is this important? And focusing on that in their end of the year speech. And again, that's them processing all they've taken in. And so, and reflecting in that, I'm like, even if they're silent, even if they're still processing, man, in 5 years, again, this group of leaders, where are they going to be? Where are they taking us? If we really just move into them and give them all the resources they need to grow as a village, as a community.
Yeah, very, very exciting. And again, it just gives me great hope for our future and being able to advance as a society. So, yeah, it's great stuff. Okay, so I'm going to jump back real quick. I added my pork and my rice in there. So now I'll just go ahead and mix all that up. And then this is where I'll put in my salt and pepper. And then my secret ingredient today is soy sauce. No real revolution there or revelation there. Now, while I'm doing that, now you told me a great story when we visited earlier today that that I would like to ask you to share with everybody about your father and how he took care of you.
Oh, my parents are wonderful, loving educators. And my father, I mean, from little me to senior year, he made my lunch every single day, which became an issue in elementary because I became like the person, I don't know if y'all remember trading in elementary school to make sure you got the correct ding dong or oatmeal cakes. But because my parents are in education, he quickly found out I was trading lunches and watched that. If you've never been grounded from trading a lunch, it's a sad watch in 4th grade. But yes, the only time I would ever eat school lunch was, oh man, it's the day where I think they're taquitos, but they're chicken and covered in cheese and so good. That's the only time I didn't. But senior year, first day of school, I woke up, went to the kitchen to get my lunch, and which truly was pretty much the same. Sometimes I bounced between bologna. I went through a stage where I wanted to have fried spam, and he put his out about that after about 2 weeks. But truly, it was just like turkey, lettuce, mayonnaise, cheese. I always requested 2 slices of cheese, but that was not an option. And nice oatmeal cake. If it was, my dad's a coach, so sometimes if it was Friday and he knew we were having a crazy morning because it's game day for him, he'd make, and I still love to this day, he'll do it if I'm home, his breakfast burritos. And surprise it in the lunch for me. Often would leave little notes. But yeah, senior year, I woke up and went down ready to go, and he didn't make my lunch. And I text messaged him because he'd left early, and I was like, where's my lunch, sir? And he texted back. My dad does not call me by my name. He called me my nickname, Shorts, and he was like, hey, you are about to be 18 in a month. Here on lunch. And I'm about to say something they probably don't know. For the next week and a half, I stole my little sister's lunch and gave her lunch money. And then she revolted by tearing up one of those pillows that have the white little spongy beads in it and swinging it across my bedroom. All those beads went everywhere. And she told me to leave her lunch alone. And we're 10 years apart, so that was an 8-year-old. So after that, I scrambled. That's probably where I started forgetting my lunch and learning how to go without. Bad habits developed. Some days he'd take pity on me, and I those were joyful days where I would walk in and see what had my initial on it. But overall, it was a wonderful just bonding. Even now, I love when my dad cooks for me when I go home. Heaven help the man that I married, because the
Big
expectation.
shoes to fill, huh?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yes.
What a great story. That's
Yes.
absolutely fantastic. Yeah, I remember the lunch trading days as well. And it seemed like more of an auction than a trade whenever I was back in, when I was in school. So,
I, when I say I was heavy into it, you are correct. I was often the person that was like, if you trade this for this, then we can get this. And I
absolutely.
got grounded. It kind of halted the whole auction block.
No doubt. So, do you mind talking about what helpful community resources are you seeing or using personally or as an educator? And what resources can be provided to you as an educator and advocate? Um, can you talk a little bit about that? Where are you seeing some great help, and what help do you need?
So one person I'm leaning into right now to learn from in education is Bettina Love. Wonderful author. They directly talk about how we can, as educators, break the system and rebuild into an anti-racist classroom and community. And another resource that I'm loving, and right now they have a great July series happening, is the Fort Worth ISD Race and Equity Team. Their town halls and their posts are so inclusive, so engaging, and accountability. They let you know, here's how to move forward. I'll be happy to share both of those resources for certain
Yes.
comments. And then resources that teachers need right now is that reaching out first to TEA and representatives to hold them accountable to what is the best way really to do this process for students and teachers, the safest, healthiest way. How do we do this? And the second is, I know myself, like I said, I've bought my face shields. People who make masks locally, because I'm trying to really support that, I think are a bit overwhelmed with the ordering, but teachers need masks. I've been hoarding Germex, thankfully, for years now. So that has come in handy, but teachers need that. And then teachers still need regular supplies. Donors Choose is a wonderful resource, but also, and I'm happy to put this in the comments, connecting with, for instance, in our community of Fort Worth ISD's community partnership page. You can request a school in your community, or maybe a school that, if you're an engineer and you want to partner with I Am Terrell's STEM department and provide resources for them, whether it's online engagement tutorials that they can do extra with however we proceed, or even coming in and wanting to do something for their STEM days, the partnership people will connect you. If you are looking to, a Black male looking to mentor a young Black man, there's plenty of schools around, and we all have My Brother's Keeper that community partners can partner you with. So it's one of those things, and I keep saying this, whatever you have to offer, I guarantee you a school will find a place. It can be monetary and financial, because every school needs that. Most schools at this point have grants and parent PTAs helping them really survive. And so that is something that schools need, but also bodies, volunteers, people who are bringing in their resources and their connections. And again, as teachers, I'm not gonna lie, a Friday with some surprise donuts goes a long way. That email where, hey guys, somebody provided breakfast for us is a thing. Way to get us alert on a Friday morning, real quick.
I'm sure.
So contribute what you have. I guarantee you we will be thankful for it. And like I said, I'll share that community partnership for Fort Worth.
Yes,
That you can really contact them and say, here's what I have to offer. What school do you think would be best? Even books. books are a thing. Somebody right before we went to spring break donated like 300 books to me, and they're sitting in the storage closet. That I'm waiting to get that email that's like, look, put on a mask and get up here. This is in the way. But I'm really excited to sort it out, figure out where things can go. I've heard that there's some art books in there. I'm sure they can use them. Some nice, what is one instrument development? Like he, as an artist that developed and built instruments,
Right.
I'm sure they can go somewhere. So anything that you have, we're happy to have.
Great information, and wonderful to know that it's not just always about pencils and paper, and that some of those other resources are as valuable to the educational components as well. So yeah, it's great stuff. So, all right, do you got any tips or tricks for staying healthy during all this crazy times, mentally and physically?
Wear your mask and be kind. Keep that 6 feet. But also, it's okay to look at the guidelines and see where it works for you. I think right now, the mental health is what we all need to really be looking at on a lot of levels. It's just a lot happening. So don't forget to maybe turn off all of the technology and read a book or go lay in some sun, eat well. And me personally, in this time, I've been really managing my money, because that whole worst case scenario is they just cancel school completely. And then I don't know what that looks like for me. So to ease my mental, I've been budgeting. There's so many now therapists that are doing Zooms and onlines. Lean into them. Especially families. I was talking to one of my friends who's a therapist, and she's like, one thing that's kind of arising that parents likely didn't consider is, oh, my kids really didn't get along before this, and now we're all locked in a house together, and we're trying to figure this out, and they're not miraculously going to get along either. So lean into those resources. But yeah, take care of yourselves, guys. There's only one you. And you're doing something for us, and we appreciate it. So take care of yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so I've got one more question. This is probably the most important one, okay? How and where can we find you and keep up with your advocacy and know where you're at and what it is you're working on?
Okay, so I will share it in the comments, but A Good Man's Education Conversation is my Instagram, and I think it's A Good Education Con, where I even just recently broke down how TEA and the State Board of Education really works for people. But again, going through that series right now for teachers and supporting. And then through that entity in August, I'll be launching a podcast that'll really help people understand how to navigate the education system, how we came to where we are in the education system, roles that certain entities play, and also really looking into the lived experiences of others and what that says for what we need to do to grow and change. And then a book. Through the podcast, I'll be doing a book club of sorts. I'm really excited for the first read. I'm not going to announce it now. And it'll be on the school schedule. So when you're on break, I'm on break, usually recording. But I really hope if just one person helps out and being able to advocate for themselves or their child, then there we are. So yeah, those are my spots where I am.
Great. Yeah, make sure you hit those comments, lead us to it, and we'll do all we can to support you. So I can't thank you enough for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
I'm going to give you just a little insight to how it is.
Oh, it looks delicious.
I know. So it's got some of those pineapples and also those roasted jalapenos. Normally, I sign off with the bite, but I'm not going to do that because you don't have a lunch. So I'm going to wait till we get off camera and I'll eat.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it.
Delicious. Devin, I cannot thank you enough for taking the time. More importantly, I really want to reiterate our thanks as a community to you as an educator, and an advocacy leader. And please, please keep it up, and let us know what it is you need and how we can support you, because I know that the pandemic is something that we are all trying to cope with, and education is really going to be a slippery slope and a hurdle that we're going to have to find a way to get over. And
Mhm.
with people like you, we will find a way, and we will continue to move forward. So I just can't thank you enough for joining us.
Thank you for having me, and I look forward to seeing how, just like I said, with this series, a community we've developed and grown, how in supporting and building a better education system as a community, we
Yes.
develop and grow, and how all of you and so many more find a way to really invest in your local schools and students. We can do it. We've got this, y'all.
Nice. It's great to hear, and it's great to see leadership firsthand. And just so grateful you decided to join us, and so appreciative of your time. So
Thank
stay
you.
healthy, stay active, and keep at it. We're pulling for you. We really are. So,
Thank you very much.
of course. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that does it for another episode of Boxed Lunch. We'll be back on Monday here on Facebook. Make sure you pop over and see our YouTube channel. We've got some other Boxed Lunch episodes, some other great content from the Fort Worth Community Arts Center. Make sure you follow us on Facebook, Instagram, all of those great social media places. And with that being said, bon appetit. Have a safe weekend, everybody. Take care of yourselves, and stay healthy. Wear your masks. Wash your hands. Have a great weekend, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye, y'all.